All right, can you guess what Unit 9 is all about? You guessed it, circles. Grab those vocab books. Okay, so go ahead and write this down, parts of a circle, and draw your circle with all of these lines and letters. Okay, so first thing we want to do is name the circle, okay? Just like triangles have names, triangle ABC and rectangle ABCD, well, circles have names too, but it's a lot easier to name a circle. All you need is the center of the circle. So take a look at this. The center is the letter M, so we would call this circle, put a little dot in the middle, circle M. Okay, so you name a circle by its center point. Next thing is the radius. The radius is the length from the center to the outside of the circle. So MK is a radius. So is ML, and so is MP. So there's actually 3 radii. That's how you say, that's the plural word for radius, radii. There are 3 of them. Okay, so we can write down any of the 3. I'll go ahead and write down this one. Okay, so that is the radius MP. So it's segment MP. What about the diameter? I know you're probably familiar with this already. Hopefully this is kind of easy for you. Well, the diameter is the distance all the way across the circle, but you have to make sure you go through the center. Okay, so all the way across. So in this circle, for circle M, the diameter would be LK. LK. Line segment LK. Now, chord, that's probably new to you. Okay, chord is just a distance from one side to the other in a circle. Okay, so we could draw a chord here, 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 here. There's tons of chords, but this one is a chord. So we're going to call that chord QT. Okay, it's segment QT. That's called a chord. All right, pretty easy, huh? Let's try another one. Okay, next word, circumference. Circumference. I know you've heard of this before, but circumference is the distance around a circle. For other shapes, we don't call it circumference, we call it perimeter. But for circles, they get a special name, circumference. And there's a formula to find the circumference. Okay, C stands for circumference. Pi is 3.14, and it keeps going on and on and on. I'm sure you've heard of that before. But we're going to use 3.14 for pi. And then D is your diameter. So you just have to find your diameter and multiply it by 3.14. And you'll have the circumference, the length all the way around the circle. If you were to take the circle and put a cut through it right here and lay it flat, the circumference would be that length of that flat circle, or that flat piece that was made by the circle. We'll practice how to do that in a few minutes. Okay, third vocab, area of a circle. Well, we've already looked at area of all the other shapes. Now we have area of a circle. So that's just the inside area. So the formula for area of a circle, the A stands for area. This is pi, and we're going to use 3.14. When we see pi, we're going to replace it with 3.14. The R is your radius, and then we have to square it. So you square your radius and then multiply it by pi. So remember, the radius is from the center to the outside of your circle. It's just a matter of finding the radius and plugging it in, multiplying it. It'll be pretty easy, you'll see. Let's try some practice problems. Okay, be sure to write down your title and today's date, and write the directions, draw the picture. So we have to find the circumference of this circle. So let's go ahead and write down the formula again for circumference. It's C equals pi times the diameter. So down the corner, I'm going to have a spot for my answer. Now, let's take a look at the circle that we're given. What does the 7 represent? Is that your diameter? Nope. That's actually your radius. So, we have to find the diameter. So, if 7 is the radius, the diameter would be the whole distance across, which would have to be 14 inches. Okay. Because I could extend this, and that would be another 7 inches. And so the diameter would be 14. So let's go over to our formula and plug in what we have. So we're going to use 3.14 for pi, and we're going to multiply that by the diameter, which is 14. So now we just plug it into the calculator. So I'm grabbing my calculator. I just have to multiply 14 by 3.14, and we get that C equals 43.96 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I will round that to the nearest tenth, which would actually turn it into 44. 44 centimeters. Pretty easy, right? Okay, let's try another one. Okay, problem 2. Now we have to find the area of this circle. So we need to write down our area formula. So recall area is pi r squared. So let's look at our picture. What we're given is actually the diameter, not the radius. So remember, the radius is half of the diameter. So half of this would have to be 8, since 16 is the diameter. Let me go ahead and write a spot for my answer, or I forget. Okay, so we have our radius. Now we just have to plug it in. So A equals 3.14 times your radius, which is 8, squared. Now make sure that you square first, then multiply by 3.14. We follow PEMDAS. Remember, we're going to do exponents first. So we have A equals 3.14 times 64, 8 squared. So now I just use my handy calculator, 3.14 times 16, and I get the area is 200.96. So I'm going to round that to the nearest tenth, which would actually make that, that 6 would make the 9 turn into a 10, so I'm actually going to have 201 centimeters squared. Since we're working with area, it's squared. Circumference, you just leave it to the power of 1. Okay, let's go on. Okay, last problem. I would like for you to pause the video, write down the directions, and try this one on your own. Okay, once everybody's done, then we'll start the video again. Okay, so what you should have done is put a spot for your answers. We're finding circumference and area. And we didn't have the picture this time, so you can draw the picture if you'd like. You can draw a circle that has a diameter of 12 centimeters. You didn't have to draw the picture though. Well, if the diameter is 12 centimeters, then the radius would be 6 centimeters. So we know that D is 12 and R is 6. So let's find circumference is pi times the diameter, and area is pi r squared. So let's just plug in what we have. Let's find circumference. Circumference equals 3.14 times the diameter, which is 12. So I just have to multiply 3.14 times 12, and we get that the circumference is 37.68 centimeters. And so whenever we want to round that to the nearest tenth, it would be 37.7 centimeters. Okay, now let's find the area. So area equals 3.14 times our radius, which is 6, squared. Okay, so we're going to have 3.14 times 36. Just use the calculator again. And we get 113.04. And if I round that to the nearest tenth, we would get 113.0, or just 113 centimeters squared. Did you get it right? If so, why don't you put a star in this box? Yeah, or a couple stars. Would be even better. Cool. Okay, now that we've practiced some problems and you filled out your vocab book, it's time for you to try pages 1 and 2. Have an awesome day.